Years before Germany launched its 1939 offensive against Poland, the Third Reich readied itself for war. As part of these ongoing preparations, Hitler launched several expeditions to colonize remote areas and establish bases in both the Arctic and Antarctica. The objective of these stations was to serve as military outposts for Kriegsmarine submarines hunting down Allied convoys, while also supplying Germany with valuable resources like whale oil. However, the expeditions also had a more sinister purpose related to Himmler and the occult. It is said that Hitler sent archaeologists tasked with uncovering ancient Nordic relics. The operations were plagued with strange happenings from the beginning. None was more mysterious than what happened at the German Arctic base Schatzgräber, or treasure hunter. The base was abruptly abandoned in 1943 after half of its crew strangely passed away, and it was found more than 70 years later, filled with war goods covered under thick layers of snow. The whale oil expedition. 3 years after rising to power, Hitler's plans to build up Germany were coming full circle. Political opposition was minimal, and the economy was improving. By 1936, the Germans were enthused by Hitler's support of working families, and the country was once again a global superpower. The Führer put veteran ace pilot Hermann Göring as the head of an economic plan that would give Germany enough food for the upcoming war. The so-called German Fat Plan had the objective to bolster the country's efficiency in administering the consumption of butter, milk, cheese, margarine, bacon, detergents, and other oil and fat-based products. According to History Channel author Eric Niller, in his article Hitler Sent a Secret Expedition to Antarctica in a Hunt for Margarine Fat, quote, "The idea was to find substitutes for these oil and fat-based products in case imported sources were cut off. At the time, whale oil was one of the main ingredients for margarine, and Germans ate a lot of margarine. Germany bought large quantities of whale oil from Norway, but it needed to find an alternative in case the Nordic countries sided with the Reich's enemies in the near future. In August of 1936, the Reich's Foreign Office decided to establish an Antarctic base for German whalers. Suddenly, Germany got into the whaling business. The Germans chose unclaimed lands near Queen Maud Land, next to Norwegian and British territories, to establish a base. Hitler then appointed veteran naval commander Captain Alfred Richter to lead the expedition. Richter sailed from Hamburg in December of 1938 with a crew of 82 scientists, soldiers, sailors, and a Nazi official. The official on board made everyone listen to Hitler's radio broadcast around Christmas. Cornelia Luedecke, a history of science professor at Hamburg University, later wrote that, quote, "Everyone had to sit in the room and listen. There was one speech where there was some atmospheric disturbances, so they had to switch off the radio." The Germans reached the coast of Antarctica 1 month later, and after exploring the area, the explorers called it Neuschwabenland. The crew performed research operations and eventually made it back to Germany in April of 1939. However, the information gathered was lost by the end of the war, and there is still no trace of any facility constructed in Neuschwabia. The German Arctic Expedition. After the 1938 Antarctica expedition, World War II broke out, and Hitler's ambitious plans to colonize frozen landscapes were momentarily forgotten. While Germany ruled supreme in Europe and Africa during the first years of the conflict, things eventually went sideways as Russia launched its first offensive maneuvers on the Eastern Front. The Wehrmacht was not able to get as close to Moscow as it once did. Meanwhile, the British tightened their maritime blockade in the North Sea and the Mediterranean, and German U-boats became a priority as they were the only naval assets Germany had to wage war against the Allies. The Führer then ordered to build a base in the Arctic from which German U-boats could easily detect Allied merchant ships. The construction of the so-called weather station began in mid-1942 and was finished by the following year. The base was named Schatzgräber, or treasure hunter, and its main objective was to support Kriegsmarine crews operating across the Arctic. In his article, Mysterious Arctic German Base Rediscovered, author David Grossman wrote that the region, quote, was a crucial convoy route for Allied troops, with more than 1,000 merchant American, Canadian, French, and British ships delivering supplies to the Soviet Union under the Lend-Lease program. Schatzgräber was built to help U-boats and German patrols hinder and sink those convoys, which it did with a mixed rate of success. But there was another reason behind the base's construction. Himmler and Goebbels were interested in using it for propagandistic purposes. Heinrich Himmler was deeply immersed in the occult and in Nordic culture, so he allegedly sent an archaeological team to search for ancient Viking relics. The group never came back. The Schatzgräber base was located in Alexandraland along the Franz Josef archipelago, about 600 miles from the North Pole. The conditions were extreme, and food and supplies started to run low after only a year. The station's crew even resorted to hunting and eating raw polar bear meat, probably infected with roundworms. It's believed that more than half the crew died from poisoning, but the truth remains unknown. During a year of operations, the crew sent over 700 synoptic weather reports, the last one in July of 1944. A submarine was then sent to rescue the survivors, and the station was abandoned forever. 72 years would need to pass until it was rediscovered by Russian scientists. A Russian discovery. The treasure hunter station is barely mentioned in historical records and eventually became a myth among historians. After it was found, Evgeny Ermolov, a researcher from the Russian Arctic National Park, said, quote, "Schatzgräber was only known from written sources, but now we also have real proof. Now we can enter this data in the scientific revolution, and referring to the evidence, to expand and clarify the idea of the German army operations in the Arctic region during the Second World War." The Russian scientists found over 500 World War II-era artifacts left behind by the German crew. Bullets, shoes, canteens, petrol canisters, and remains of bunkers with the Third Reich's insignia were found all over Alexandra Island. Most of the items were preserved in remarkably good condition and taken to the mainland of Russia, in Arkhangelsk. Among them were written documents that the scientists hoped would give them a lead about the real purpose of the abandoned station. To this day, nobody knows for sure if the Germans really conducted an archaeological expedition along the Arctic's frozen landscape and perished along the way, and no human remains have been found near the area. There's also no evidence that Hitler ordered similar expeditions, and it wouldn't be until 1981 that Germany would set up its first permanent base in Antarctica. What we do know is that once the war ended, American, Soviet, and British operators were sent to both the Arctic and Antarctica to take over everything that they found. Perhaps they discovered what Germany and Himmler were after. Please like and subscribe to watch more mysterious Dark Files content, and let us know in the comments below about other topics of your interest.